Tim Petrowich here for Dateline Marion, and our guest, as usual, in the fall on a weekday is Marion head football coach Kerry Martin. And coach, the Wildcats are now 2-1, another come-from-behind victory this past week over Harrisburg, 35-24. I guess the first thing you have to say is a win is a win, but we talked a little bit, and there's some things that concern you a little bit.
Yeah, there certainly are. You know, the turnovers hurt us, no doubt about it, and the penalties continue to plague us. It's, you know, disruption in our consistency. We're not able to establish drives because of mistakes that we're making, and a couple of turnovers in the red zone, and those kind of things are going to be too big to overcome against our conference opponents. We've got to find a way to clean that up, and we're trying to address those in practice every day, and take care of the ball and eliminate those mental mistakes, penalties, things like that that are costing us the ability to drive the ball and put more points on the board than we are.
Last Friday's game was a far from pretty game on both sides, and I think probably one of the things that was able to help you, even though you had the 5 turnovers, was the fact you were able to create some turnovers and get the ball back away from Harrisburg.
Yeah, the defense really played a really good second half for us, and I think that was a big key. I don't think the defense gave up an offensive touchdown. I think they gave up a special teams touchdown.
Right.
The defense played really well in the second half, and I once again commend my defensive staff for finding an adjustment at halftime that shut the door and gave us a chance to get back in the game. And we scored 35 points. We're happy with that, but I think there were points left on the field, and you know, we were in a situation where we fell behind again, and I love the resilience of our team and the never say die attitude, but you can't play every game from behind. You're going to have to find a way to get out of the gate faster and put some points on the board early in the game, and not leave your defense in such a tough situation.
One of the things I think was important in the game, and you got the late touchdown to ice it, but at that point you were ahead by 4 points, and you had stopped Harrisburg on 4 conversion attempts, and that you have to be happy with the way
Right.
your extra point defense worked.
Yeah, they did a really good job, and I think those are little things that tend to go a bit unnoticed, but I think they were crucial points of the game, and I think our extra point opportunities were pretty good, I think, except maybe one. I think so, you know, I think our kids did a good job of stepping up at key times in the game and making big plays, and we got some big plays from the offense at key times, but again, we feel like that we've got to be more consistent. I think through the first 3 ball games, we've not played 4 quarters. We played 2 at times. I'm not sure we put any 1 quarter together last week. I thought against Mattoon we played 2 pretty good quarters in the second half, so we've got to improve in that area.
There are some highlights from the game, and we talked about the 5 turnovers, interceptions thrown by Brant Hill. At the same time, Brant was able to keep focused well enough. He picked up 140 yards on the ground, threw for 167 yards and a touchdown, and at the right time, he made some big plays for you.
Yeah, he did. You know, and that's a big part of it. You know, sometimes it's not what you do, it's when you do it. And I think at key times he battled back from making some mistakes and made some big plays for us. And we had other guys like, you know, Chase Huggard step up and make a big play for us, and Jared Doris and Mitchell Bartle, and just some blue-collar guys that are out there playing hard for us.
I want to talk about Mitch because late in the game we're looking at the numbers, and he had, I think, 74, 75 yards rushing, and I turned to one of the guys on the sideline and I said, that was a hard 74 yards.
Yeah, you're right, and that was a very tough set of yards for him. And Harrisburg played really well against us. They were physical up front, and nothing was easy for us. And a lot of credit goes to them for playing such a good game defensively and having a good game plan. I thought Coach Roker had a good game plan, and their kids carried it out and gave us some trouble. And so it wasn't easy. And Mitch is one of those guys that got some tough blue-collar yards in there.
Another thing that I think benefited you late in the game was the conditioning that we've talked about. And, you know, Harrisburg did have a little bit of injury trouble, but at the same time, one of the things that Coach Roper noted was that they had a lot of kids that were playing on both sides of the ball, and as the game wore on, they started to get tired, and their execution suffered because of that, and you were able to take advantage of that.
Yeah, I think we did, and I think that's a byproduct of having a few more kids and being able to play more kids one way instead of both ways. And I didn't like our tempo at all. I thought our tempo was really slow. We had some trouble with the play clock, sitting with the play clock, and the referee blowing the beginning of the play clock and what was on the play clock were a little bit off, and we went to huddling a little too much probably, and didn't like our tempo. That's something we've got to improve on. Normally we play a little faster than that, and so little things like that I think kind of broke our rhythm also. I think offense is always rhythm. You get into a rhythm offensively, and things start happening, and I never felt like we were in sync, and so hopefully this week we can get on track a little better.
Well, you've had 3 games that probably I'd say you're giving your team a C- maybe in the first 3 games, somewhere around there from what we've talked. Yet you're 2-1. Right. So what do you take out of that?
Well, we talked yesterday at practice about playing below our potential. We have a certain standard we want to play at, and we're playing below where I think we should be playing right now. I think we're making some big plays, we're getting some big stops, but we're not playing up to speed with the turnovers and the penalties and the mental mistakes, and I think some players not running maybe a route as crisp as they should, or making the cuts they should, or maybe a wrong step with a foot on a block, or an offensive lineman taking the wrong step on a snap of the ball, and just little things make a big difference in the game of football. And you can have 9 or 10 guys on a play do the right thing. That one guy does it, it can break the whole system down, and that's what makes football such a unique sport, is the dependence you have on everybody in that on the field at that time to do their job. And we're just having some breakdowns. We're not getting 11 guys consistently enough doing their job.
I think you kind of summarized that really well when you said you were really close to being a very good football team and really close to being a very average football team.
That's exactly right. And I think the players understand that. I don't think that's a mystery to our kids. I think they sense that when they're not in sync and not playing well, they're not a very good team. But when they are in sync and they're playing together and we're getting that execution, we can be pretty good. So it's a matter of finding that consistency, as I've said, and eliminating those mistakes.
You start the conference season this week. You're on the road at Cahokia, and Cahokia is 0-3. They're having trouble putting points on the board. I think they're having a little bit of issue with hanging on to the football at times, but they're so athletic, and when you go up there, it's a tough place to play. You haven't had a whole lot of success in Cahokia, so you've got your hands full again.
We do. They're 0-3, but they probably played the 3 toughest non-conference games of anybody in the conference. And so they played 2 schools of over 2,000 kids, Alton and O'Fallon, and they played Miller Academy. It was a very good, very athletic football team out of St. Louis, Missouri.
I think the combined records are 7-1. So.
Right, exactly. So they've played the best competition. So the records can be a bit deceiving, and we know that. And they were the same last year, I think, coming into our game. I think they were 1-2, and they were a much better team than what their record indicated. And I expect the same thing. I think we've got to make the road trip up there and get off the bus, and we've got to wake up and play from the get-go, or we'll be in trouble. And they are physical, they're aggressive. But I went back and looked at the last several years of Cahokia film, and what they looked like 3 years ago, they look like, they don't change what they do very much. Tough, aggressive, athletic, and we've got to make sure we scheme appropriately, we do all the fundamental things that we've got to do, and come out of there with a win.
And because they're the same, even as athletic as they are, if the players follow the game plan that's prepared for them, you can have success against them. You can move the ball, you can stop them on defense and do those things.
Even last year, we moved the ball well. We just turned the ball over too much. And I felt like last year, going back and watching the film, that the game is much closer than people remembered. And I remember because of the turnovers. We had some big plays against them, and I love the game plan we had in place. And at times we executed it really well, but those turnovers came back to haunt us. And then 2 years ago up there, we beat them, and I thought the kids really executed the game plan extremely well that night, as good as we ever have against Cahokia. So, well, we're gonna try to, as I said, get off to a better start and try to do the things that we do well. And being 3-1 would be a whole lot better than 2-2 at the start of the conference play.
When you take a look at this conference and what's happened in the non-conference games, and of course you never know, because once the teams start playing each other, they tend to beat up on each other a little bit. But you look at Centralia 3-0, Marion's 2-1, Carbondale's 3-0, Mount Vernon's 2-1. You know, Altoff is 1-2, but they played some really difficult teams, and Cahokia is 0-3. But these teams in this conference, I mean, as you look at it, it used to be that you say, well, Mount Vernon, that's going to be a win. You can't say things like that anymore. So you're going into the team with the worst record, and they're a team that's beat you already where they beat you last year.
Yeah, you're exactly right. I mean, every week is going to be a battle for everybody in this conference. There's not a game left on the schedule where you can point and say, probably going to get that one. Not a one. I think every ball game is going to be a battle. And I think that goes for Marion, that goes for everybody in the conference. So it's going to make for some interesting football. It's going to make for a lot of close games. And staying healthy is going to be crucial. I think staying healthy and keeping your starters on the field, and you know, I think all those factors are going to be huge. But it's an exciting time to be in the South 7. I think we see a real rise in some teams that have been down, and I think we have a real opportunity to have one of the best years we've seen in the conference.
Looking ahead, you know, if teams play their cards right, you have the opportunity to possibly put 4 of your 6 teams into the playoffs.
Yeah.
You've got, and one of the teams right now that's on the outside looking in is the defending state runner-up in Class 2A. So
that's right.
That just talks about how strong this conference has got.
It does. And a couple of years ago, we had 1 team in the playoffs, and I think you're right. This year we could have as many as 4.
You talked about health. You've got some kids back. Travis Wright's back on the offensive lines. You got some other kids back. I know Jordan Evans got hurt in the game against Harrisburg, one of your starting defenders. Talk about the health a little bit.
Well, Jordan's definitely better, but I don't know how much or if he'll play on Friday. That's still up in the air as of this airing. So I don't know what his status is, but we're leaning towards giving him another week of rest. John Dalton still out, probably a few more weeks, hoping to get him back later in the year. So, you know, those are the main key players. We had another young man get an x-ray on his arm, Sam Brown, but looks like he's okay. So, you know, we're a little banged up, but everybody is week 4. It's part of it, and hopefully we can keep our key guys healthy and get a few guys back like John later on.
And I know you eased him in a little bit, but how important was it to get someone like Travis Wright back on the offensive line, especially with the struggles they've had early in the season?
Yeah, and I think having some experience like he's got and gaining some depth in the offensive line, which is where we were having to put a lot of even skilled kids to back up in positions. And now we're seeing some young men like Damian Buchanan, other kids starting to get a little experience, and having Travis back. So it does definitely help.
You're at Cahokia. It's a long road trip, but if I think back to 2 years ago, Marion had about 4 times more people in the stands than Cahokia did.
We did. We had a great crowd, a good travel, and we always appreciate the fans, you know, making the trip up there and supporting us. And you know, Cahokia's never been a place that I've minded going. It's the fans are right there behind us, and it's been a good environment for us. We've always played very well there. Even games we've lost, we've been very competitive there. So we don't see any reason for it to be different this year.
All right, that's Coach Kerry Martin, the Marion Wildcats. The Wildcats at Cahokia this Friday night. For Dateline Marion, I'm Tim Petrowich.